Hi guys, Mr. Wiz here. It is time for our very first MakeCode lesson. I hope you're excited. I'm excited, so let's do this. Today's lesson, we are going to be creating a simple program where we're going to have a sprite that moves around a screen. So today's lesson is going to teach you some simple things about how to create a sprite, how to create player controls, and mostly we're going to be focusing on how to make it look good. So today's lesson is going to have a lot of art stuff associated with it, specifically pixel art, on how to create a good character, a good background, and so on and so forth. So the coding is going to be pretty simple, but you're going to want to stick around, especially if you consider yourself creative or artistic. You're going to want to stick around to the end when I show you some pretty fun stuff that'll take your art skills in MakeCode to the next level. All right, you ready? I'm ready. Let's do this. All right, first things first, before we begin creating our program, make sure you are signed in. Top left corner, you need to see your name or picture or initials, something to know that you're there. If it says sign in, then you're not signed in. Click on it and make sure you sign in so your work is getting saved. All right, let's go. So I'm already signed in. I can tell because my picture's up there. Hello, me. All right, down here where it says new project, we're going to go ahead and click on that to create our new program. When you create a new project, they always ask you for a name. Put something in there. Don't just type in garbly-gook. I have some students that will sometimes just type in blah, blah, blah. That doesn't help you. That doesn't help you at all. The reason we create a name for our projects is so that we can find them later when we need them. So give it a name that you will recognize, that you know what the project is. So in this case, today's lesson is all about creating a simple character. So I'm going to call my lesson, what should I call my lesson? I'll just call it character creation. I won't get too fancy with the name. Now, the cool thing is I can always change the name of my project later if I want to. Once my project starts to take on a form of its own, I can go back and I can change the name. All right, so now I have an empty program. The only thing I see is this one block here that says on start. The on start block is a super important block. Anything that you put in that block will run, guess when? I'll let you guess. It's when the program starts. Yes. So an on start block, anything you put in there will run when the program starts and only when the program starts. That's an important thing to remember. So if you put stuff in the on start block that you want to happen later in the game, it doesn't make sense to put it there. On start runs one time at the beginning of your code, and that's the only time the computer reads it. So today we're going to be creating a character and we're going to be creating a background. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's get started with the background. So over here on the left-hand side, of course, you have the simulator where you can see your program. Right now it's completely blank because there's nothing in our program. The next section, we call this the toolbox. This is where you're going to find the blocks that you're going to need to build. So if we go to where it says scene, this is going to be the blocks that we use to create the scene of our game, the background of our game. So I have options here to get started. There's background color and there's background image. These are different things. Background color and background image. So background color would work great if I just wanted something really simple. Maybe I want to do light blue. Maybe my game is going to be birds flying and there's going to be clouds. So a light blue background might be all I need to symbolize the sky. Or maybe I'm doing an ocean game and I want to just use a dark blue background to represent the ocean. If I'm doing a top-down game, I might use the green background to represent grass. You guys get the idea. So sometimes you don't need a picture. Sometimes a background color is all you need. Then the other block is the background image block. I'm going to go ahead and delete the color for now. So the background image block allows us to create a more detailed picture instead of just a background color. So when I click on that bubble, this is where I can start to create my image. So let's start talking about the art tools. That's going to be the big focus of today's lesson, is the art tools. So over here on the left-hand side, you have all the tools that we're going to be using to create our background picture. This looks very similar to the tools that we'll have when we create our sprites as well. So you've got all these things over here. In the bottom left corner, we have these numbers, 160 and 120. What could that possibly mean? That is referring to the size of the screen. It is 160 wide and 120 tall. By the way, you are going to want to remember those numbers because we will be using them a lot throughout this course. 160 by 120 is the size of the screen on our simulator. It's also the size of the screen on the Game Go or whatever other device you might be putting your games on. 160 wide, 120 tall. Now, what units is that referring to? 160 what? Is it inches? Is it centimeters? Is it millimeters? I'll give you guys a second to think about that. If you said pixels, you are absolutely correct. MakeCode measures in pixels. If you don't know what a pixel is, in the case of what we're doing, a pixel is the smallest measurement. It's basically a point of light, a dot of light on your computer screen. Our MakeCode programs are 160 pixels wide and 120 pixels tall. So before I just start drawing stuff, I have options here. I can, if I wanted to, just start creating. Now, I'll be honest with you guys, I'm not the most artistic person in the world. But, I do what I can. So maybe I want to create a little thing. I'm going to use these tools. So most of these tools are pretty self-explanatory. We have a pencil, which you can draw with, right? So I'm going to draw, maybe that's a beach. There's an eraser tool where I can erase stuff if I want to. There's the rectangle tool where I can draw rectangular squares, boxes, things of that nature. There's the bucket fill tool. This one is the one that I use probably the most often. So there I've got the sun. I've got some dirt or sand or something. Like I said, I'm not the most artistic person in the world. There's the circle tool to create circles, and there's the line tool to create lines. That's pretty handy. When you want to create a straight line, it's kind of difficult to do by hand. Then there's the selection tool and the canvas pan tool. I will talk more about those in a moment, but they are handy. All right. Down below that, we have our colors. We are limited here to basically 15 colors and then one that is the transparent, the nothing color. That's the one with the little checker box, right? If you put your mouse over it, you'll actually see the name there. Color 0 is what they call that for transparency. Then we have color 1, which is white, color 2, which is red, so on and so forth. So these are the basic tools. Up above here, you got these 3 squares. This is the size of your brush. So if I have the smallest square, then my brush is exactly 1 pixel. So if I wanted to draw something in the sky, it's going to be super tiny. That is 1 pixel size that we're looking at there. I don't like those. I'm going to use the undo button down here in the bottom right corner. By the way, if you didn't already notice, there's an undo button down here in the bottom right corner. So if you make a mistake while you're creating your art, you can simply click undo to erase it. The second size is a little bit larger. I'm going to go with the white color here. So maybe I want to draw some clouds in my sky. That white color doesn't look half bad. The third size is much, much bigger, but I could draw with that if I want to. Usually I don't use this largest size because it is so large. It doesn't look very good. But yeah, you've got 3 different sizes you can go with here for the size of your pen. All right, there's also buttons here that flip things. You can flip your image vertically. You can flip it horizontally. You could even rotate it, which is probably not a good idea, but you can. So there we go. Oh, I almost forgot. You can also use the selection tool to select a part of your artwork if you just want to edit that. So let's say I have this cloud on my screen and I want to make more of them. I can select it with the selection tool, and now I can use Control-C on my keyboard to copy, Control-C to copy, and then Control-V to paste. If you didn't know those shortcuts, they're very handy. Anything to do with computers, Control-C to copy, Control-V to paste. So I just copied it. I'm now going to use Control-V to paste it, and there's my new cloud. And I can create more clouds on the screen without a lot more work. Oops, I messed that one up. Let's undo that using the undo button here. There we go. I'm going to move it, and now I've got 3 clouds instead of 1. I can also use these tools up here that we talked about, the flipping and rotating tools, on just a part of my artwork. So if I didn't want all my clouds to look exactly the same, maybe I want to flip this one so it looks a little bit different. Maybe I want to rotate one of them. That would be kind of weird, but I could do it if I wanted to. And now I've got a vertical cloud. Oh, but I also have a bald spot that I'd have to fill in, right? I could also, with the selection tool, I can change other stuff about it. So I can grab these corners and I can I sometimes have trouble with the corners. All right, let's try this again. I can grab the corners and I can stretch it, or I can squish it. I can do all this stuff to it, right? So I'm making more unique clouds. And of course, I'll fill in those bald spots. Okay, I'm recording this after I record the other stuff because I forgot to do this. So now back to where I was talking about. I'm just going to leave this like this for now. This isn't too bad. So if I hit done, I've created my background image, and now it's going to load it onto my device here on the left-hand side, and I can see my background. Doesn't look too shabby for somebody who is terrible at art. I'm calling myself out on that. So a few moments ago, I showed you guys background color. Did you know you could actually do both of these? You can have a background color and a background image. Here's where things get kind of crazy. Let's say I wanted the background sky to be a different color. Instead of leaving it the light blue like I've made it here, let's make it transparent. Anything that's transparent you can see through, which means that you'll be able to see the dark blue background that I have selected. Kind of crazy, right? So you can have a background color and a background image, but you'll only see the background color if there is transparency in your background image. So why would you do this? Well, maybe you want the sky color to change as the game goes on, right? So at the beginning of the day, it might be dark blue to represent maybe it's darker outside. And then later on in your game, I might switch it to a light blue, where the rest of the background might be the same. So I can do that kind of stuff, potentially, if I wanted to, right? And that's why you might want to have a background image and a background color. So right now, I've got my background image. I've got my background color. Oh, I didn't even show you guys. Man, I'm making a terrible video. I didn't even show you guys the gallery. Let's talk about the gallery. If you don't want to hand draw something, there are images in the gallery. The gallery is where you can see the pre-made stuff that you can choose from for your game. So they've got things like roads, they've got cities, they've got forests, they've got winter scenes, they've got a lake, they've got underwater, all sorts of stuff here that you could potentially use as the background for one of your games if you wanted to. What I will typically do, because I do not consider myself very artistic, is I will usually start with a gallery image and then just edit it and change it using the tools that we talked about. Okay, so I've got my background color, I've got my background image. It is time now for me to add my character. So if I go over here to Sprites, this is where I'm going to create my first character. This red block here says, set my sprite to sprite of kind player. This block is super important when you're building in MakeCode. You're going to be using this block a lot. Anytime you're creating a new sprite, just about, you're going to be grabbing this block. So what is a sprite? If you are new to building games, that might be a new word for you. Think of it this way. A sprite is basically a picture that can move, it can be interacted with, it can do things. So a sprite is an image that is interactive. That's a good description of it. So the background image that I drew, it has a sun, it has clouds, it has a ground. Here's the problem. None of that is interactive, okay? So if I wanted my player to fly into the sun and something terrible would happen, I don't know why I would do that, but if I wanted that to happen, I should not make the sun part of my background image. The sun would have to be created as a sprite. Same thing with the clouds. If they're background, they're just a picture. If I want the clouds to be a part of my game, then I need to create them as a sprite. That's the important thing to remember. If it's part of your game, if it's something interactive, if it's something the player is going to be touching, responding to, interacting with, it should be built as a sprite and not part as the background, not part of the background. So let's go ahead and create our sprite. I've got my block. It says set my sprite to. I can change the name here. So here I have the option of creating a new variable or renaming the current variable. For now, I will leave it at my sprite because that works fine for my needs. But later on, if I build a game that has multiple sprites, definitely name each one so you can keep track of what is what. So I've got the block. Oh, I should look at it again. It says set my sprite to sprite of kind player. So we are building a player sprite. We're going to leave that set as player. And now I'm going to create my player. Now in this case, I don't feel comfortable creating one. If I had some art skills, I could. But instead, I'm going to go to the gallery. And I'm going to use one of the pre-made ones from the gallery here. There are so many sprites in the gallery that you can use. It's amazing. So helpful to someone like me who is not super artistic and can definitely use the help. So in this case, let's do one of the dinosaurs. They look fun. So I'm going to make this guy my sprite. We'll do that one. So now I've got a sprite, and he spawns in the middle of the screen because I haven't told him anywhere else to go. So this is my character right now. Now, right now, if I go to play my game, it's not going to do anything. If I click on the buttons, it's not going to do anything simply because I haven't coded it to do anything yet. All I have so far is a background image, a background color, and a sprite. I want my sprite to move around, so I'm going to go to Controller, Move Sprite with Buttons. So once again, if you didn't see it, that was Controller, Move Sprite with Buttons. It's important here to make sure these names match. They both say my sprite, so that's going to work fine. You know what? I'm going to go ahead and rename it, though. Now that I know what he's going to be, I'm going to rename him as Dino. That way, if I add more stuff to my game later, I will know which one is the Dino and which one is the other character. So I've got my Dino. I'm allowing it to move with buttons, which means now, if I use up, down, left, right, my character can move around the screen. Pretty handy, right? Also, by the way, you can enlarge the simulator by clicking on this large button right here. You can enlarge it. And you don't have to play by clicking on the joystick. You can also use your keyboard. WASD on the left side of your keyboard is up, down, left, right. That's the WASD buttons. You can also use the arrow buttons on the other side of your keyboard, and that will also work. For games that use A and B, we'll talk more about those later, but those use space and enter or Z and X. But we don't have that in this game right now. So I've got my guy, up, down, left, right. He's able to move around the screen. Pretty cool. Let's say I want to change him, though. Let's say I want to change the way he looks. So let's go back and let's start editing. First comment I'm going to make. A very common mistake that my students make when they're creating sprites is they see this empty space here and they want to put something there. So maybe they decide to put in some sky color or something like that. Don't do that. Literally, don't do that. Even though it might look good now, in my game, it's not going to look good because it's going to create a box around him. And even if that background was the same color as the sky, if he walks over the dirt, well, it's still going to see it, right? If he walks over the clouds, the sun, we're still going to see it. It's always a good idea to use that transparent color anywhere where you don't actually have anything, right? Any empty space should always be left transparent. It's going to look much, much better. All right, so I've got my dino. I'm going to make some customizations to him. Let's make him purple. We'll go Barney with this guy. All right, so we've got Barney, the purple dino. And then this shade I don't really love. I'll go with that maybe. Let's see what we can come up with here. I still don't love it. I still don't love it. All right, I told you guys I was going to show you something a little bit advanced. Here's the time where I get to show you that more advanced stuff. All right, I'm going to undo some of those changes that I made, by the way. There we go. Okay, so let's say that you're creating a program and you don't love the 15 color options that you have. I'm looking at my stuff here. I've got the 15 colors, but I really wish I had 2 different shades of purple and not just this one. Let me show you the super secret trick that you can use to improve your art in your game. Now, here's the negative. Well, what I'm going to show you will change the color options, but it will affect the whole game. So if I need to get 2 different shades of purple for my dinosaur here, I just need to know that from now on out, anything in my game is going to have that option available. Basically what's happening is I have to delete one of my current colors to make room for the new color. All right, so let me show you how that works. I'm going to hit done here. Up here where it has blocks, it also has JavaScript. We're not going to mess with that today, but then it has assets over here. In the assets section, it shows you any assets that you are currently using, any sprites, background, things like that that you are currently using. Then it has over here where it says colors. So if I click on colors, those are the 15 colors that I'm currently using. And the cool thing about this is I can change them. So up here where it says arcade, I could potentially change all the colors by just picking a different one of these schemes, like Adafruit is probably not bad. Let's see what that looks like. So now I have more color options. I have 2 different shades of purple. That's kind of cool. All right, but maybe I don't want to use one of the pre-made ones. I'm going to go back to arcade. Maybe I just want to change one of these colors. I noticed they have about 3 different shades of gray here. Maybe I don't need all those different shades of gray. So I'm going to change this shade by itself. And we'll make it kind of that color. I like that shade of purple. So I can do that. And I can create a name for my new palette if I want to, or I can just leave it as custom. I'm just going to leave it as custom. And I'm going to apply that. So now that I've created a new color scheme, I can go back in here, and that shade that was gray is now that other version of purple that I made. And there I have it, a much more purple dinosaur. So by customizing the 15 colors, you have a lot more control over how you can make your game look. Just keep in mind that that color scheme is going to be the same for your entire game. So for instance, if I got rid of the color yellow and decided to change that color yellow into something else, I'd have a problem because my sun is yellow. So if I get rid of yellow and I change it, it's going to change the color of my sun, right? So whatever 15 colors you have, you can only have 15 colors being used at a time. Now with that said, there is an extension called color fading, which I will eventually tell you guys about when I cover extensions. With that extension, you can have the colors change in-game, but you're still limited to just 15. So I will go ahead and stop, I think, the lesson now. Here's what I want you guys to do. Here's your mission, if you choose to accept it. I want you guys to make some art, make a sprite, make a background. You can either use the stuff in the gallery or you can create your own thing. Feel free to change the color scheme if you want to, like I just showed you. I want you to create a sprite. I want you to create a background. And then I want you to share your work with me. Wait, how do you share? You didn't learn that part yet. All right, so here we go. I'm going to teach you how to share. To share your program, here's how it's going to work. You're going to click up here in the top right corner, these 3 dots with the 2 lines. This is the share button. You'll see it. You may already be familiar with that button because you see it in a lot of apps, a lot of social media stuff. This is the share icon. If we click on it, it's going to allow us to publish it. Remember how I told you before you can change the name of your program? Well, here's a great time to change the name. Instead of calling it character creation, I'm going to call it Barney on the Beach. So that's the name of my project. I'm going to share my project, and I'm going to get this new fancy link. We're going to copy that link, and now anybody I send that link to can play my Barney on the Beach program. All right, so here's what I want you guys to do. Build something fun. Give it a cool background image. Give it a cool sprite that can move around the screen. Then I want you to copy your link, just like I copied mine, and paste that link in the comments of this video, along with the description of what you made. So in my case, I would paste it as Barney on the Beach, and I would share the link in the comments for you guys to check out. And you can post your stuff, and I cannot wait to see what you make. Please look at each other's work and give them a like if you like what they made. For this video, if you learned something new today, give it a like. If you're not already subscribed, please subscribe. And I cannot wait to see you next time when we learn something new.